complete the recitation of the second juz of the Holy Quran. So far we have recited the first half of the second juz, and in the next 10 rak'ah inshallah the second half will be recited. This whole juz is part of the previous surah, which is Surah Al-Baqarah, the longest surah of the Quran and the second in order of the chapters. In this juz, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala discussed the incident where the Qibla was changed. When Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam arrived into the blessed city of Medina, for about 16 months, the first 15 months of his stay in Medina, him and other Muslims, they used to face Jerusalem, Baytul Maqdis, in Jerusalem, in their prayers. So instead of turning their faces towards Qibla, towards Kaaba in Mecca, they would turn their face towards Baytul Maqdis in Jerusalem. That was the Qibla. This is why it's considered Al-Qiblatul Ula, the first Qibla for Muslims. Because we as Muslims, we as the Ummah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we turned our faces towards that house, towards Baytul Maqdis in Jerusalem for at least 16 months in the beginning. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala changed the Qibla from Baytul Maqdis to Baytullah to Kaaba in Makkatul Mukarramah. There are many reasons that ulama have mentioned, that scholars have laid out why the Qibla was initially set to Jerusalem and why was it changed. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala briefly explains that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala changed this Qibla إِلَّا لِنَعْلَمَ مَنْ يَتَّبِعُ الرَّسُولَ مِمَّنْ يَنْقَلِبُ عَلَىٰ عَقِبَيْهِ. That it was a test for Muslims and those who initially pretended to be Muslims, but from their heart they were not Muslims. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tested them by changing this Qibla from Baytul Maqdis to Baytullah, whether they will follow the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam or they would stick to their desires. So it was the test, but now forever until the day of judgment, the Qibla remains to be Baytullah, Kaaba in Makkatul Mukarramah. So this is where it starts from. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about the prohibition of carrion and pig, pork, and also anything that is slaughtered in the name of anyone other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So all that is considered haram meat, all that is considered maita, all that is not allowed for Muslims, all that is not halal for Muslims. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about that. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this juz talks about the precepts of Hajj. What is Hajj? What is the wisdom behind Hajj? Also fasting is mentioned in this surah. So 3 pillars of Islam are mentioned in this surah: Salah, fasting, and Hajj. So Salah comes, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu ista'inu bis-sabri was-salah. Then comes fasting, Ya ayyuhalladhina kutiba alaykum as-siyam. Then comes Hajj, Al-Hajju ashhurun ma'lumat. فَمَنْ فَرَضَ فِيهِنَّ الْحَجِّ فَلَا رَفَثَ وَلَا فُسُوقَ وَلَا جِدَالَ فِي الْحَجِّ. Then moving on to the second half of this juz, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about the issues with regard to the interaction between men and women, also issues related specifically to women regarding their menstrual cycle and what is allowed, what is not allowed. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala moves on to the issue of iddah. If a woman is divorced, what is her iddah? And if her husband has died, what is her iddah at that point? So there are two types of iddahs that a woman is required to observe if she separates from her husband. The separation may come as a result of divorce, and the separation may also come as a result of death. So if the husband has died, the iddah is different, and if the husband has divorced the woman, the wife, then the iddah is different. Both are mentioned in 2 different verses of this juz, Surah Al-Baqarah. So it's important for the sisters to understand and also for the brothers to understand one point. The point that I want to mention tonight before I conclude inshallah is that if a woman has already started one iddah, let's say she was divorced and now she's completing her iddah of divorce, iddatul talaq. And in the meantime, God forbid, the husband dies. So now she will not be completing her iddah of divorce. Instead, her iddah will turn into the iddah of death. So at that time, she will be completing the iddah of death. This is called ab'adul ajalain in terms of fiqh, in terms of Islamic jurisprudence. Ab'adul ajalain means whenever a woman, she is completing iddah from one scenario and somehow the situation changes, so she will have to complete the longer iddah. Any iddah, any term that is longer, she will have to complete that, and that is the fiqh of these verses. Wa akhir da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin.